Hi there, everybody. It's Tamara and Sarge Payne coming to you live from Utila, Honduras, from Everyday Superhuman. And so, in our company, we think that everyday people can be the hero of their own lives, and we're working to create ways where you can learn how not to be a victim, how not to be a victim. So, this is my husband Sarge. If you haven't met him yet, do yourself a favor and meet him. He's really fun.
Sometimes.
And so I asked Sarge to come in today because I think personally that as a success coach, you cannot move out of victim consciousness and victim mindset unless you work on it both from the physical perspective as well as from the emotional and energetic perspective. So that's why I asked Sarge to come and talk about how not to be a victim physically.
I guess that means I'm on. We've got, here on the island, or not necessarily on the island, but other places, I have a little class I give, and it's just on that. It's how not to be a victim. There's two parts to it. One is how not to be a victim, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the second one is, okay, that didn't work. Someone's really adamant about making you their victim. How do you get out of it? And maybe exact a little revenge in the process. But that's on the physical side, okay? So we're just going to talk about the basics physically of how not to be a victim. Real quick, this is only going to be a minute or two on my part, and then she's going to get into the mental side of it, if you will. Okay, some people are big, they're muscular, they're whatever, they look intimidating. Those people are blessed in that most people don't want to make them a victim. And why do you think that is? Well, they don't become too many people's victims because they're what I call expensive. Okay, they look like they can exact a price from someone who's trying to make them a victim that's higher than that person wants to pay. Okay, that's the definition of it, I guess. But basically what that means is, and I use this analogy here on the island, we have little things called pastelitos, and they're just deep fried meat in a little dough. They're kind of like a fried taco that's closed, I guess. But, pastelitos are cheap. So then there's 20 places down the street that sell pastelitos. And you go into one place and it has a pastelito and it's 12 lempira, which is 48 cents. That's not bad. But then you go to the next store and that pastelito all of a sudden is 300 limps, which is like $12 for the same pastelito. Well, which pastelito are you going to buy? You're going to buy the cheap one, right? It's the same thing. It's just a lot cheaper. That's what I'm saying about making yourself expensive. If your price is too high for that person to challenge you, they're going to lose more than they're going to get from making you their victim. You're not going to be their victim. Because face it, people that are into that kind of thing, victimizing other people, taking advantage of other people, assaulting other people, all that, they want things quiet. They want it easy. They want you to cave into their desires and not put up a resistance. If you start doing that, that's what you're doing, is you're making yourself expensive. Okay, so basics of it, it's got to start with you and yourself. It's got to be a decision. I'm not going to be a victim. Okay, so the people that walk around shuffling their feet, looking at the ground, they're always nervous looking. They don't make eye contact with anybody in the street. Those are the targets. For someone that's looking to rob you, let's say you got $20 in your wallet. Someone that wants $20, you're the person they're looking at. Okay? The person that's walking down the street with their head held high, they're walking with confidence. They're looking across the street, they identify a possible problem. You know what? They make eye contact with that problem. Hey, I see you. I know you're there. I'm watching you. Guess what? That 90% of the time, that alone is enough to make you expensive in their mind, and they're going to move on to the next victim. Now, that sounds harsh. Let it be someone else's problem. But, in the dive world, we have rescue class. And my first rule of rescue class is never become another victim. If I've got to rescue two people, how have you helped me? Okay, you can rescue the first person, but if you're a victim, you can't do anything for them. Okay, so you can help the other person if they become a victim and you're around. But you've got to take care of yourself first. So be confident, make eye contact, give yourself a presence, make yourself expensive. Okay, that's just the basic 30-second rundown on how not to be a victim. There are obviously other things involved with it that we could spend an hour on going over here, but we're not going to. That's the basic 30-second rendition of it. So she's going to get into how that works for you mentally. Okay?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you spending time with us and with our audience to share that
I didn't
information.
get a scowl at the camera. Let me do it one time.
Okay.
There you go.
One
right.
time. Now, what would you be
real Sergeant Point. All right, so I'm done now. I can go and smile.
And so you can imagine that. So the reality is that I'll bring a real world example of what Sarge is bringing forward, and that is there was an incident several weeks ago where I was walking the dogs very early in the morning, and there was a person who was still partying from the night before at about 5:30 in the morning. The sun had just rose here, and he and his friends wanted to make comments to my body and wanted to move towards me. And so I chose at that moment not to make myself a victim. And I explained to them very clearly in English and Spanish that the key that I had in my hand was for their eyes. And if they touched me, that I would take their eyes out. And so.
She's taking guys.
And so if you don't see my wedding ring, you don't see my huge dogs, you don't see my posture, then the next thing you're going to see is my key in my hand, and I'm going to take your eyes out because that way I have your DNA. And the reality is that I moved from that state now where I am at almost 47 years old to not being that really all of my life. I wasn't taught to fight. I didn't have this man as my husband. I was taught that I needed to take whatever was given to me. I needed to be a good girl. I needed to behave myself. I needed to be nice. And you know what? That really didn't work. So I learned to make myself a physical presence every place that I go. Well, let's take it back a few steps to what I decided on a mental aspect, on an emotional aspect, and on an energetic aspect. And there's two things that I make a decision every single morning. And I want you to do the same thing if you're stuck in victim consciousness, if you're stuck in helplessness, if you feel like you can't do something. The first thing you need to do is when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing that you can do for yourself is you can imagine that you have a buffet table in front of you, a food buffet table. And in that buffet table, you have foods that are really good for you, and you have foods that you know really aren't so good for you. So for me, I'm personally allergic to wheat. So I imagine that there's wheat bread sitting on that table, and I imagine that there's watermelon and coconut milk and all kinds of other foods on that buffet table. I consciously make a decision every single morning to pick up the foods, if you will, that feed and fuel my body. Well, you can extrapolate that and imagine that on that buffet table is a range of emotions that you can choose to pick up and wear for that day. You can choose to pick up something like gluten or depression. You can pick to choose something like anger. You can pick to choose helplessness and victimization and self-loathing as well. Or you can pick up joy. You can pick up these simple, beautiful emotions of gratitude. And when you do that every single morning for 21 days, it creates a habit in your brain. And it's something very simple to be able to do. You're retraining your own brain, you're retraining yourself. And so, therefore, every single morning when I wake up now, and I've done this practice for 28 years, every single morning I pick up an emotion and I choose to wear it. Now, I wear my emotions. I'm a very emotional driven person. I happen to be very lucky to be married to somebody who's not emotional, who doesn't he doesn't understand emotions. He's really a robot in a lot of ways.
Happy and anger.
He knows happy and anger. That's it. And so I don't know that simple range. My range is much more passionate and much more varied. And maybe you're the same way. Maybe you're robotic and maybe you don't process emotions, and it's a great thing. We need each other. It's a good balance. So that's one way to practice every single morning for the next 21 days. Today is August the 12th. So whenever you listen to this, mark it on your calendar for 3 weeks from now and try that as a practice. And I had a second thing and I completely forgot it. So it's all right. It's not supposed to be today. I'll share it with you another time. Thanks for joining us. We think that there's no time like the present. And again, we don't think superheroes wear capes. We think that everyday humans can be their own empowered, fully embodied, greatest human potential of themselves.
So just think about what you've been through. Nobody knows your story. You've had struggles that nobody knows about that might have caved in other people. That's why you're an everyday superhuman. You're still around. You're still here. You're still putting one foot in front of the other. And we love that, and we like to see people take that drive and go on to bigger and better things.
That's right. And we're here to help you. So let us know how we can help you. Comment here. And thanks for spending time. Have a great day.